right.
can I go and
Thank you
save
guys
one
for
of the
joining.
rooms for my
We are waiting for Carthage to arrive. He is arriving right now, so I want you guys to all just get on this side of the room. Just come on this side. Just come over here. Rolly, would you please come over here?
Yes.
Can you come over here, please?
Okay.
Oi, Panico.
Yep.
It was just
Thank you. And just stay on this
Panico,
side.
how you
And
doing,
please let
man?
him speak.
It's like the
great.
That's
like the one
Yeah.
supposed to say the back.
It's
All
really
right.
awkward, like walking about, but I don't even know if I can make fitness. I'm like the assistant
To make
teacher.
her say the same thing.
You just
I like that
just
the one
gives advice.
octopus in the
All
back.
right. All right. So everybody,
Don't let
stay
me
quiet.
kill
Thank
you.
you. Hello,
Hello.
Carthage. Welcome
Got it.
to the class. This is a mixture of all classes. We have class 1, class 2, and class 3 here. Just a mixture. Not all of them are here because we have about like almost 30 in class 3. So they're not all here.
Oh my.
But meanwhile, two groups, class 1 and class 2, are actually making maps right now with their teams, and class 3 is going through all their exercises before they get put into teams. So, Carthage is going to express what you guys should, how you guys should moderate your own rooms to get better engagement and how to be great hosts. So, Carthage, thank you for joining us and giving some really good advice for new creators. All right,
Yeah.
take it away.
Thanks for having me. Hey guys. Okay, yeah, I'm like not recognizing a bunch of you. This is excellent that we got a bunch of like up and coming creators making real cool stuff. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about room moderation, what that looks like from our side, what that looks like from your side, how you can sort of make some intelligent decisions as you build and set up your rooms to sort of maximize the amount of
Photos.
we'll say like good vibes that come out of them, right? The thing you should be optimizing for is that the people who spend time in your room are enjoying the time that they spend there, right? This is what gets them to come back. This is what gets them to bring their friends with them and come back. If they're just there, either getting actively, hopefully not, but potentially like harassed by other players, or just being constantly bombarded by some onslaught of noise or something like this, that's not going to drive a lot of people to spend time in your room, even if your art skills or your circuitry skills are amazing. So a couple things to talk about. We'll start a little bit on just how we view things on our side. This is more just a sort of during creation thing to keep in mind. The model that we take when we look at rooms is that we typically, our big phrase is rooms are behavior, right? This is how we address concerns of, hey, there's something inappropriate going on in this room, right? Something violating code of conduct going on in this room. The attitude we take towards that is, as I said, sort of rooms are behavior, right? So if you build something in your room, or more specifically, if something is saved in your room, right, we take this as an indication that you or one of your co-owners saw it fit to put this as a permanent feature of your room, and that kind of gets judged as, all right, this is now a thing you are responsible for having generated, or having put out there. So if you go and make some massively code of conduct violating thing and save it in your room, or if one of your co-owners does, this is something we view as you being responsible. You guys, I don't think this is much of an issue. This is more a thing we tend to address with a different crowd, but figure it's worth bringing up anyway. Along with that, though, comes this one other piece that I want to talk about, which is sort of something to keep in mind during creation, and that is the responsibilities of your co-owners. I think this is a little bit sometimes fuzzy for people, especially based on some questions we tend to get as to like, hey, my co-owner did this in my room. Can you guys up on high like do something about that, or revert this change that they've made, this kind of thing? Maybe you guys are already well versed in this, I don't know, but just to put it out there and say it, the attitude towards co-ownership is that they are effectively on the same, we'll say, like privilege level as the creator themselves as far as what's in the room, how the room gets treated, and with this comes this sort of implicit notion. Oh shoot.
Hey, please unblock him. He cannot hear you.
Uncle James, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I don't know why I had you blocked.
On Discord.
All right, well, we'll just start over from the beginning so Uncle James can get it.
Long
Hi. Oh wow, great to see a lot of like up and coming creators. No, sorry. You didn't miss too much. Just me blabbering on about some our side stuff. Right. So implicit in this notion of like the stuff that's in your room is sort of your responsibility is that you should be a little bit cognizant of who you choose to be your co-owners of your room, right? Presumably these are people who you want to collaborate with to create something really cool, and that's always awesome, and we love to see social creation going on, and I expect you guys enjoy taking part in it. The thing to keep in mind is co-owners of your room have effectively the same abilities you do, right? They can delete your room on a whim if they want, not fully, but they can remove the content of it, so you have to go through the troublesome process of restoring it. They can go clone your room to somewhere else. So assigning someone co-owner permission should be something that you very intentionally do, right? Given the character of the person and sort of what you understand about them. So if this is someone you've worked with a long time, if this is someone who's a good friend, that's probably not a problem. If it's somebody who you've just met, great, and always glad to see people making friends through creation, but it is just something to be a little bit cognizant of, is, hey, once you've sort of given that person that permission, anything they do is an extension of yourself. So that's sort of like creation side of things, just like how anything that sort of like bubbles up past what you guys handle in your own sort of dealings with your own room, how that gets addressed from our side. Okay, that's taken care of. Just looking down my notes a little bit. Okay, so on the sort of more interesting topic I expect to you guys is how to moderate your own rooms and make some decisions during creation that allow for effective moderation from your perspective, right? To help make sure people aren't ruining other people's experience in your rooms, as well as how to sort of actively go about doing that moderation on your own. So a couple things to discuss. One of these is putting in some formalized restrictions, either through permissions and roles, or through some circuitry to restrict behavior that you think would be troublesome. I know I've seen this, like my one prime example of this is I know that some of the art rooms that have been, I can't remember, Marisa, maybe you know for sure if it's like Bell Art or somewhere else, there's some of the art rooms where people set up these clever circuitry systems of like, hey, once you've entered sort of this area, you've like laid claim to a whiteboard, and we do some circuit-driven. Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Dummies and then
Dummies and triggers.
Yeah, with costumes. Yeah, that's what it was. And this like lets you lay claim to a whiteboard, and using circuits, we can then prevent other people from getting close to your work and ruining what you've been producing. These kinds of like where they're applicable, these kinds of I'll say like engineering controls is typically what they'll be referred to as from folks who do engineering work. These kind of systems level solutions are massively effective, and so you should kind of be keeping an eye out if you create your room, like, hey, where's a potential for somebody to be not just in a code of conduct violating sense, but in a just like this could ruin someone else's experience. Is there something we can do to inhibit that from happening at a systems level, right? Where your circuit logic or your permission setup can prevent that from happening without you or a co-owner or a host of the room being present to remove somebody who's causing trouble. This is something to think about. Let's see. So yeah, that's engineering control level. Next sort of level of things is thinking about bringing in individuals to help sort of enforce rule sets for your room, right? So if you are making a PvP map and you have some sort of set of rules you want to enforce on the players who are coming in there, like don't, I don't know, what's a common one? I guess just like don't spawn kill, right? Sure. If that's some rule you want to enforce, this is something that's probably a little bit difficult to do on a systems level, right? To have your circuits decide, oh, this person is spawn killing is probably a little bit of an abstract goal. I expect there's some people in this room who could probably figure out how to do that to a weak sense. Like,
I can probably do that.
Yeah, and like I've got some things going in my head of like maybe, but definitely there's some kinds of behavior that you're going to either conceive of or observe people doing in your room, where you kind of look at that and say, well, it's hard to sort of strictly define what characterizes this, what characterizes this sort of class of behavior. It wouldn't be easy to identify at a systems level. This is something that just needs to sort of be dealt with by a human, excuse me. Yeah, I'm talking to people. So addressing this then comes down to having some, I'll say staff, but just group of people that you've trusted to sort of help you moderate your room, typically done through the host permission, probably giving them the power to like instantly kick someone out of the room. With this comes this sort of list of criteria I'm going to go through, talk briefly about selecting those individuals to be that sort of extension of yourself in the room. So this sort of falls under like how to pick your moderators, right? How to pick people that help you out in preserving the atmosphere of the room that you want to create. Things to think about. The people that you choose to do this should, first of all, just sort of be good Rec Room citizens like yourselves, themselves, right? If this is someone that you come across and you know they've had a past history of being troublesome to other players, harassing other people, just making other people's day and Rec Room worse, maybe this is not the kind of person you want to entrust with passing on a positive experience to other players in your room, and maybe not the person you want to trust to be setting the tone of your room, right? That reflects upon you as a creator. Probably want to find someone who, in addition to just being a positive person themselves, is decent at setting examples for others, right? So there are just people you'll come across who are relatively charismatic in their ability to get people to behave in a positive manner or go along with whatever game mechanic you've set up or whatever puzzle you've built, hangout room you've created, this kind of thing. And then the last bit of this is softly defined, but I know we've seen it a bunch, definitely, in some of the sort of common, but it's probably mostly the PvP rooms that are out there, is some people, and this is, I would say, like within your rights as a creator to the most part, some people construct rooms where they say, okay, here's like the game structure, maybe I think the common one's a PvP room, so like here's some PvP structure, but like me and my co-owners and my hosts maybe have, you know, godlike sort of powers to just like completely disregard the game mechanics and go around and do whatever I want in my room. And this is maybe rather fun for those individuals and probably within your rights as a creator to do. But it doesn't create a very positive experience for the people who visit your room. I know we hear complaints about it all the time, like, hey, there's this PvP room where the co-owner just runs around and shoots everybody and has made it so they can't be killed, and this is frustrating to them. And it leads to them just not going back to that room, right? So pick your battles. If this is something you want to create to like enjoy yourself, go for it. But if it seems like you guys are enthusiastic about making things for other people, designing around, like not designing the systems, right? Finding ways to have fun in your own room without doing that, and ensuring that the people that you bring on as hosts in your room, as co-owners in your room, to help you moderate that space, aren't looking for that, is, I would say, relatively important, right? You don't want people that you entrust to help moderate the space who are simply looking to gain power in that space and just abuse it to ruin the experience of other people. All of this sort of comes down to trying to find
co-owner here.
Say that again? Oh, you're talking about
No, sorry.
No worries. Yeah, so all of this sort of comes down to finding people who you, I'll say trust as a loose term, to help you moderate that space. Anything else in my notes about that? I think that about covers it. Points that sort of come across are if you're looking for folks of that manner, right? People you've been friends with for a long time, people who maybe helped you create that space and feel really invested in that room, or maybe in some longer campaign or set of rooms you're creating, are great sort of choices for people to look for this kind of thing. Last thing I want to talk about a little bit, and this is maybe something that you guys will end up talking about a bit more as you create rooms, probably with Marisa, is designing for behavior. This is hard to address in particular instances, but we can probably, I would imagine that right now, probably brainstorm a couple instances of of good ideas for this. So behavior in rooms is not solely a function of the people there. It certainly is to a large extent, right? If you have somebody who is, a very positive person, they're going to be that way no matter what, to a certain extent. If you have somebody who tends to be, we'll say, like, loud and kind of chaotic, you're not going to be able to inhibit that
Come on, let's be
fully by just designing your room in a particular manner. But you can sort of make some intelligent choices about how you design your spaces and what you put in your rooms to incite better behavior from your players. So a couple of things that come to mind. Um, Putting an open microphone in your room, maybe not a great idea, right? This invites individuals to sort of lower their inhibitions, because if you allow them to go to some secluded spot where nobody can see who they are, this sort of comes to the age-old problem that games designers all over the space, yeah, you see them a lot in PvP maps, the games designers come across, which is just as you add anonymity to people's actions, right, they're going to start to present more troublesome behaviors. This is one sort of trivial example, is that, putting an open microphone in your room, maybe not a great idea. The other thing that comes to mind, though, is, oftentimes I think we'll see creators who say, like, hey, I want to drive traffic to my room, and it's sort of not all over the place knowledge, but particularly if you're creating like hangout spaces is a great example. You'll see people just like set their room limit as high as it can go. The player limit in their rooms as high as it can go. You could say, hey, I want to make this neat hangout space, and the room could accommodate 20, 40 people. Why don't I just do that? The reality of the situation is that you should, this is solely an example, but you should be making some decisions about, hey, this is the sort of size of the space that I've created, and it probably accommodates this many people reasonably, where they're going to have a positive experience. They can sort of interact with each other in a reasonable way. So that's a decent example. If you're designing a hangout space, it's probably worth doing a little bit of testing with yourself and with some friends to say, like, hey, at what point does this space start to feel sort of chaotic, and setting a player limit about there. If you let it become this big rampant space with 40 people in it all the time, you'd probably expect to be hearing from a lot of people that, hey, the content in this room is not great, because with chaos, like, chaos spawns chaos, right? People who enjoy making mayhem are happy to find a place that's already a little bit chaotic and keep sort of going from that, they're kind of fueled by it. That logic, I really like this example of sort of limiting how many players are interacting in a space together. So hangout rooms is sort of the canonical example, because it's really easy to think about it on a sub-room level. Like, hey, I've made this space and that's how many people I want to let in there. But for those of you who are maybe interested in creating more, I'll say, narratively driven experiences, or any of the kind of maybe like tycoon simulators that we've seen in the past, like Ligzer's farm beta thing is a pretty good example of this. If you wanted to create some sort of room that, say, allowed a large number of players in it at the same time, but many of them are, let's say, venturing around. So maybe you make like a town, and players come in and they have to accomplish a bunch of tasks in the town. So maybe they like have to go to one place to collect some resources, and go to a store and buy some things, and go through the cave to like defeat the dragon, or whatever the case may be. That's a space where you might say, hey, as a whole, this thing should accommodate a high number of players. And so if you're into designing these things, you should be putting some thought into, rather than limiting the number of players who enter the subroom as a whole, trying to think about the number of players that should be engaging with each one of those pieces of sort of content in your room, or each of those like mini activities at the same time. This can be addressed in like a couple of ways. Right? This could be, hey, I'm going to randomize where I send people from some central quest hub thing to help sort of split the crowd around. This could be that there's some sort of progressional matrix, and I like gate people to prevent them from going to other spaces to help limit how people transit about. And then the sort of complementing layer of that is designing this, for those of you who are the sort of artistic side, or like the space designers, is creating your environments to accommodate the number of people that you're looking for. So, hey, you're going to go through the cave and defeat a dragon. If you mean this as an activity for 3 or 4 people, for example, you maybe don't want to design the space to be absolutely massive, right? You want to design it so that it feels comfortable with that amount of people, so that they'll kind of naturally tune themselves to like, well, going in there with a group of 10 doesn't feel super good because we're all crowded in a room. And this will sort of disincentivize players from engaging in that sort of activity, right? This is great from just a games and experience design perspective, as well as a moderation one. you can sort of choose to limit how players interact by how you design the like flow of the gameplay in your room for the making gameplay. I expect you guys can probably brainstorm probably even better than me because I'm certainly not a prolific creator. A bunch of other instances for how you can make design decisions that impact player behavior and therefore the amount of moderation that you have to do. I think a lot of the examples I've seen that we have out there of rooms that I would consider not super well moderated could probably be addressed equally well with just like having more people there constantly, like more humans there moderating, and just making some design changes to influence how players interact and how much trouble an individual can cause. So making those design decisions early on in your process of like brainstorming an idea for a room, thinking about this early, and then being willing to iterate on it as you go is pretty valuable. I think that's most of what I had as far as things I wanted to explicitly address. Oh yeah, one more thing is it kind of lies at the interface between promotion and moderation is how you bring people into your room. I think it would be a mistake, let's say, to try to market your art creation room to the crowd of people who are looking for quests and try to bring them in, right? The atmosphere of your room is going to be thrown off. People are not going to interact in the way you probably want them to. And then in extreme cases, this can lead to some sort of moderation issues if you have clashes of personalities. So this comes down to the simple example of like how you tag your rooms. I know it is maybe sort of canonical knowledge amongst some of the creators to like put really popular tags on your room because you know it will put them in places in the watch where people will find them. That's not entirely untrue, right? If you have a semi-popular room and you tag it PvP or Quest, like people will probably see it and people will probably go there. It's worth thinking about whether or not those are the people you want visiting your room and you think are going to create the kind of atmosphere and the kind of play experience for other players that you want. And I realize that lies in sort of a tricky place because it's sort of this decision of, well, I could try to bring in a lot of players or I could try to bring in the players who want to find my room. My advice would probably be to lean much towards the latter, right? Try to find the right people, the people who want to be there, rather than trying to fetch everybody. In the long run, it's probably better for your career as a creator to have people find your stuff, a really positive experience there. Say, hey, this is somebody who I enjoy what they've made, and they'll kind of be willing to track you and what you make as you move forward. I know I have a couple people that I'm subscribed to that I just get real excited every time they produce a room because I know that it's the kind of thing that I'm looking for in Rec Room.
Right.
I think marketing to that crowd is much more important than trying to draw as many people as possible, regardless of what they're looking for and how they're going to behave, into your space one time.
Right.
I think that's most of what I have. I don't know if you had anything else in particular you wanted me to
Yeah.
address. Otherwise,
Yeah. I think that's actually a pretty good cover. I would also just try to influence a little bit more here. So, if you guys are accepting people who are coners and they're just spawn killing and flying around just because they think it's funny, that's not cool for moderation in your room, and you can get your room taken down because of that. And if those behaviors don't change, then you might not be able to create another room. For another thing is if you guys really want people to come into your rooms, you can do an invite or an event. So if you guys create an event, you can like have a really nice hangout party. You can say, "Oh, I'm doing a celebration." That's a good way of actually trying to get more players into your room. But definitely don't go ahead and tag, PvP if it's not a PvP, because we will actually remove
not a
that
tech
tag
idea.
from your room, and that's just misleading other people, and we don't want to be misleading others. So that's another form of moderation. Just be very respectful to the people that come into your room. Be good guests. If someone is acting out or not respecting the rules of your room, then you are more than free to kick them or ban them from your space. So, yeah. You would like to add anything?
I don't think so. I mean, if anybody has like specific questions about room moderation, either from your side, from our side, that you wanted to chat about, I'm happy to answer. Yeah, what you got? I can't see everybody's name for some reason. That must be a bug. We should fix that.
Neutral Man, that's the name. Neutral Man.
Neutral Man.
We cannot hear you.
Okay, sorry, I turned off my mic.
Don't worry.
So I have a question. So, in order to get good atmosphere, like players to get on your game, so wait, would you be able to like invite people that have as good atmosphere? Because if you had it on events, you would also have people that would bring a lot of negativity onto the room. So how would you be able to kind of filter that
Yeah.
out? Would you just put in like a ban type of like voting?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's an
Just ask
excellent
the player.
question. Yeah, so a couple of things that are worth keeping in mind. So current system, and we're actually looking into some changes we can make to this to improve the tool set that we give you as creators to moderate your own space. Soon, TM. But we're actually having talks about that like in recent days. A couple tools that you have. If you, I'll say this right out. So if you as a creator have blocked a player, they can't visit any of your rooms. Like they'll get a message when they try to go that's like, nope, sorry, the creator's blocked you. Right now, this does not apply to your co-owners. That probably shouldn't be the case. And this is one of the things that we're talking about addressing sort of soon. But from your perspective, like that is the sort of the most powerful tool you have is if you or one of your co-owners is like, hey, wow, this specific person is causing a lot of trouble in my room. You can block an individual to remove them. But to your broader question of, hey, I want to like bring people into my room. How do I moderate that atmosphere and try to create the kind of experience that I'm looking for? I tend to be of the mind that events are a pretty good mercy or self-scaling.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I was just laughing at that.
events.
Yeah,
I'm of the mind that events tend to be of a decent way to do this. I think this is not fully backed up by evidence, but my read on it is that people tend to use the event system a little bit differently than they will like the hot list, for example. And if you're looking to go to an event, people are probably more inclined to search for something they're interested in. So that's probably I wouldn't be super concerned about it bringing in a large number of people who maybe aren't really looking for your room. Not that it won't happen ever. As far as setups in your room to just deal with that as it happens, being a little cognizant of how you want to handle permissions is probably the best route. So if you're expecting like high traffic in your room at a particular time, having you or a co-owner or a host who you set up with the instant kick permission is probably not a bad idea, right? If you say, hey, I know that I'm running an event in the next few hours, or I promoted my room on my, Insta Facegram page. That's what it's called, right? Where like I have a whole bunch of followers or something like that, and I expect there's going to be a lot of people coming in. It's probably worth your time, or worth the time of co-owner hosts, whoever they may be, to spend some time in your room, keeping an eye out for individuals so you can remove them if necessary. Beyond that,
Boris, have a question.
vote kicking is probably the best tool that's available right now for players in the room to sort of help say, hey, this person's causing a bad experience for others. I don't really want them in this particular instance with me right now.
Great.
Yeah, I asked that.
1 second, the
So I have
was first, really.
Yeah,
for
just a
question.
second, just a second. I definitely want to second on what Carthage said there. So there's a lot of things that you can actually do in your room to actually help moderate your room. So if you have like a lot of people who are being very aggressive or seem to just trying to just have fun, however they want to do is like troll in some way, what you can do is you can actually make everybody stand still in the room and they can't move, and then put them on quiet, and then you put yourself on loud using
I'll be
roles.
in a minute.
And we're going to be going, I know some of you guys have already messed around with roles, but some of you haven't. When you do that, you can really stem a presence in the room about who's really moderating the room, and you can kick those people from the room if they're acting in a certain way. Um, and then you can continue the game however you want. But these are tools that are set forth in your roles that you can use to help leverage some kind of hierarchy to bring forth code of conduct in your room.
Alright, right.
So you
Yeah,
can go ahead and ask questions about it.
alright, yeah, I asked that question because, like, because I know that, like, vote kicking is it's like a temporarily type of thing, like, they keep them off the game for temporarily, but, like, if, like, somebody who's, like, co-owner or, like, owner who, like, end up kicking them or, like, banning them, it would, like, ban them for good off the game, but, like, I asked that question because I didn't want to, like, be on the game that I make 24/7 when I'm trying to do something else, you know?
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. I think that's and this is a relatively common problem in room design for you guys, game design for the industry as a whole. I mean, I think we could say the same thing about Rec Room, right? Like, we want to be spending time making new things. We don't want to be constantly in every room in Rec Room, right? Trying to moderate everything that's there. For that reason, some new tools for that kind of thing are in the pipes. Regrettably, like, there's not what I would consider like a really great answer to that right now, which is a shame, and it's the reason that we're thinking about it soon. And agreed, yeah, you shouldn't feel like you have to be in your room constantly, and typically my thought is probably wouldn't have to be. Like I mentioned, high traffic times aside, an occasional drop in of like, hey, I'm logging on a rec. Let me like quickly hop into my room and make sure things are cool there. Probably does a decent job.
Alright, okay.
The Notorious. What you got?
Yeah, yeah, when you're making PvP maps, what would you say the best scale would be? So maybe, or does it depend on what you're making for a PvP map?
When you say scale, you mean physical size of the room,
Yeah.
number of players?
Yeah, so for instance, this room, like, you can make this whole room PvP, or like smaller, or...
Yeah, I don't have a ton of personal experience making PvP maps. Maybe Marisa has
Yeah.
more insight
Depends
on
on
them
like
than I do.
speed of your walking as
Yeah.
well. Like you can make like
Right.
a really big map, but you can have like a little bit more speed. You know what I mean? So it doesn't really. You can go two
So
different
we're
ways
actually going to have a PvP designer come in next week. He's going to be speaking with a lot of the people there. But what I can suggest to you is that when you're creating a PvP map, you don't necessarily want a huge PvP map. You don't want necessarily structures branched out or spread out far away from each other. I mean, you can, but it doesn't really create a lot of engagement within the map, and also it loses a lot of players. If you guys really want to make a really good PvP map, it's best to like look at some kind of verticality and some layers within your map. So if you had one layer, a second layer, and another layer, you can either go from different layers in several different ways. You can either like hop on different layers or you can move across different layers. And it also depends on like how your vantage points, right? So you want to think about like where the vantage points are, where cover can be, and not necessarily keeping like a really big map, but more like dynamic.
And I would say what jumps out to me is the sort of quantity you want to be optimizing or for when making something is not solely like, hey, how big should I make this map physically? How many people should I invite? Probably to me anyway, if I'm playing a PvP game, the
I'll
sort of
speak with you in a
interesting
moment. Sorry.
quantity is how often player-to-player interaction happens, right? So if you make a really big map and put 3 people on it, they're not going to see each other for minutes. And maybe that's what you're trying to design. If you make something this scale and put 5 people on it, maybe that probably almost comes off with like a Mario Kart-ish vibe to me, like the Mario Kart battle maps. Probably going to encounter someone on the order of 15 to 30 seconds. That's probably the thing you want to playtest for a little bit. I would say build the space that you're kind of looking for. Like if you have some interesting artistic or architectural idea that you want to build your PvP map around, I would say build that. Try it out with different crowds of players. That to me feels like the interesting piece of a PvP game. That's what characterizes the difference between like paintball and laser tag and Rec Royale to me is how often I run it, like how often I'm engaged in combat. That feels like the sort of really
Yeah.
core thing to optimize for.
Absolutely. And we'll get into this a little bit more next week too. So we'll have O'Reilly come in, and he's really good at making this kind of stuff. And he's
Oh, you're
talked
having
about it
Red Guy
several
in to
times.
talk about it?
Oh yeah.
I might have to come for that.
Yeah. So he's really good at coming up, and we'll show some examples on PvP maps because we have our third class starting PvP maps, and I know that Nicorius created his first PvP map. Yeah,
Hey.
he did, and it was good. Actually, you created technically
Yeah.
created 2 PvP maps. If I remember.
Yeah, one I did by myself, I guess. One of them I did by myself, and then also I got moved team, and then I worked with other people.
Yeah, you got pretty good. So yeah, we have a lot of great stuff going on in here. People are already building and start making cool maps already. So
That's super
it's pretty
exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, please share pictures of your maps on Discord. It'd be great to see them. I'm sure
we love
Carthage
seeing the
would
cool
love.
stuff that people are creating.
Yeah. So yeah. Otherwise, I think this is a really good time. If you guys have any last minute questions, we can go ahead and ask them right now. Oh, we got one. Sorry from Euro. I see them in PvP maps.
No.
Wait,
That's
what?
old message. That's old message from him.
All methods.
Okay. All right. Oh, okay, nothing. All right, never mind
Okay,
then.
great.
All right. All right, go ahead, Torius.
Oh wait, I forgot. Never mind.
Okay.
Forgot his question.
Sloop, did you have a question?
Okay. All right. Thank you guys for joining
I
and
thought Sloop
pass
had a
this
question. I
information.
just can't hear him.
Oh, sorry, Stu. Sorry. Go for it.
Oh yeah, okay, okay. So I
There
have
we go.
3 questions. Okay, so the first one is like, when are carts coming back?
Oh, go-karts? Immediately. They're already out, actually. They're in the game. They came out yesterday, sure.
Okay, my second question. My second question is, right, who is coach?
Marissa.
Coach, obviously.
I'm coach, I'm just disguised.
Yeah, it's coach. Coach is coach. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how
All
to...
right.
I don't know what else you're looking for with
Okay,
that one.
And the
That's,
third
that's
question
coach.
is,
What is the teaser?
yeah, the teaser images.
The teaser is a
Like-
pattern. Figure it out, guys.
Wow, alright then.
Would Rec Room like do any crossovers with other like games, like how Fortnite did a crossover with
Oh,
Marvel?
no, please,
Would
no,
Rec
no,
Room
no.
do
Oh,
crossovers
no.
with-
I'm leaving. No.
Oh wait, no, I forgot.
There was raw data, but we want to
They've
Yeah.
already done the crossover before.
Yeah, we
I
did
wanna
one with
head
raw
out.
data a bunch of years
you
ago.
have you have the things from the crossover.
I think that's what we're actively chasing
No.
down at the moment. Just given like the amount of other stuff that we want to
It
do.
looks so different. Like,
It would kind of
Super
take
Mario
away
and just change
time
this.
from us working on the things that we consider cool to work on. So
Right.
not super soon. Maybe
Yeah,
one
yeah.
day.
Okay.
All right.
Last question. Last question.
Yeah, last question. Then I
Let's
gotta
go.
run.
How do you get a map featured?
Say that again.
How do you?
How do you get a map like featured? So like you know.
Oh, how do you get a map
have-
featured?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what
Um,
what I do is I look at all the new maps that come out. I look at all the new ones. Like people can send me maps, that's fine, and I take a look at them. But I look at everything that comes out, and I just like I pick up on design features and gameplay. So if you guys have a lot of interaction going on, and it's really designed well, then most likely it'll get featured. So
Yeah, I think. I mean, I can only make this statement based on what I've seen come out of the featured list from you. I think if I had to pick one word to like describe the stuff, it is generally like do something exceptional. So maybe you make some room that like has some exceptional art piece that like is very neat visually that no other room has done. Maybe you create something that has a really neat game mechanic that nobody else has done before or
Yeah.
hasn't done like to that caliber, right? The stuff that I think tends to be very similar to other things doesn't typically end up getting featured, but things that we look at and we're like, that's awesome! More people need to see this. That's what seems to come out of the featured list.
Right. So if you guys look at the Chicken Tycoon that came out, it's on the feature list right now. It doesn't seem like it has like super great art, right? But the game mechanics behind it's really cool. Like how fun it is. it's pretty awesome. Like that's the kind of stuff. Like it doesn't have
I
to
don't
look
get
nice.
it.
It just has to be fun, and it has to be playable, and it has to be functional, and that keeps players in and engaged, right? And you look at some of the other stuff, like how well designed some of those PvP maps. Those are really nice PvP maps. Like those are really nice ones. So yeah, those ones get really featured because they're designed really nicely. Yeah.
Cool.
That's
Yep.
so.
Yep. So I look at all the new rooms that come out. Yep. Well, we're done with questions. Sorry, Victorious.
Yeah,
We gotta
sorry.
go.
I would love to answer more. I gotta run. Got some stuff to take care of.
Yeah. Thank you,
Um,
Carthage. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Best of
Yeah.
luck with all the stuff you guys are making. I think it's really awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
Be good
what
hosts,
you guys
guys.
are doing.
Be good hosts.
See you guys.
See
See
ya.
ya.
God bless you. Have a nice day.